Yo, I made a 3D edit in the style of Aid6n, Bonson, and QuickTime in just 7 days. And today, I'm gonna break it all down for you, every single trick I used, both in 3D and After Effects. Behind the scenes footage, how I came up with the scenes, and a bunch of other useful info you won't want to miss. Oh, right, I forgot to show you the final result. You can watch the full version on my channel or just hit the link in the description. Anyway, let's jump into the first Blender project I worked on. As you can probably tell, I made each scene in a separate blend file. Why? Because if you try doing everything in one file, even if you split it into different scenes inside Blender, it still ends up insanely heavy and lags like hell. The first scene looks something like this. I started with a car model, but it had way too many polygons, so I slapped a decimate modifier on it and rigged it using the launch control plugin. Honestly, I wasn't really feeling that plugin. Yeah, it gives you a ton of car rig controls, but the animation tends to glitch out and doesn't behave the way I want. I'd honestly recommend just using a regular car rig and animating things manually, way more control, way fewer headaches. Now about the sky. When I started out, I had no clue how 3D artists were making those ultra-realistic skies. I tried all kinds of add-ins, but turns out it's way simpler than it looks. All you really need is a good image. Just position it at the right angle, change the base color in the shader to emission, and tweak the glow a bit. Lighting in this scene is pretty simple. Just a lamp off to the side and some light from the sky image itself. Now for the camera setup, behind the camera, I added a human hand and animated it to look like we're grabbing and swallowing a pill from a first-person perspective. I also animated the camera's depth of field, so when we reach for the pill, the focus shifts from the background to the hand. Looks way more immersive that way. I simulated a crowd using an add-on, though honestly, some of those people models aren't even visible in the final shot, so I could have just deleted them. At the top of the scene, I added some volumetrics. Do I know why? Not really. Did it need it? Probably not. The sky was already enough. Here's how the render looks in the viewport. Actually, never mind. My GPU's dying. I can't preview it properly. So let me just quickly run you through the scene in render settings instead. Render samples. 128, more than enough. Denoising. I turned it off in the render tab because I've got a custom denoiser in the compositor. We'll show you that in a bit. Light paths. Here's how mine look. Simplify. I limited texture size to 2K, even though I'm rendering in 4K. Don't ask, no clue why I did that. Motion blur. I only added a little, around 0.30. I'll be doing most of the blurring in After Effects anyway. Color management, using AGX because it gives you more flexibility when color grading. In the compositing tab, I've got this huge node set up. It's from an add-in called Denoiser Comp, and I absolutely love it. It clears up the noise super well and makes it super easy to export in EXR format, which lets you work with color passes separately in post. I'll show you how I do that later. But for now, scene 2. Yeah, I know in the final edit, the scenes play in a different order, but I wasn't making them chronologically, so whatever. Here's what scene 2 looks like. Holy lag. This one's killing my PC. Basically, it's a small city block I made using a procedural add-in called the City Generator. I even hid some details and it's still laggy as hell. But yeah, amazing add-in. You can customize literally everything from traffic to lighting. The car rig is the same as before, only this time I didn't use decimate on the model. Let me turn off all the extras so I can show you the camera animation properly. Here's what the raw camera movement looks like. It starts to lag once the smoke kicks in, but whatever. Anyway, this is how the animation looked before smoothing. If you don't know how to smooth camera animation in Blender, just select all your keyframes. Press Ctrl plus Alt plus O, and Blender will add breakdown keys between them. Then select everything again and press Alt plus O a few times, or just keep clicking it until your graph curves become nice and smooth. Important. Do this in the graph editor, not the timeline. So, the real secret to smooth camera animation? Set your main keyframes first, then dive into the graph editor, and adjust curves on every axis. I'm talking transform X, Y, Z, and rotation X, Y, Z too. Yeah, it takes more time, but trust me, it looks way better in the end. Anyway, I used to seriously underestimate camera bokeh, that whole blurry lens effect, and I do it through an add-in called Cam FX. Let me show you how it looks. Switching to render mode. See this? Now I turn it off, boom. Instant change. Maybe it's not a huge difference on first glance, but trust me, it makes the scene feel richer. There's a ton of lens presets for all sorts of looks, and you can tweak every single detail. Now I want to show you how I handled depth of field. As you can see, I've got my DOF target set to an empty, and I animated that empty to move toward the objects I want in focus. So when the camera flies toward the front of the car, the empty moves with it, pulling focus right where I want it. Little things like this add a ton of polish. Oh, and I've also got a camera shake modifier going just to add some extra movement. Also, the camera I used isn't a regular one, it's set to fisheye equisolid mode. Super sick for realistic fisheye imitation, I totally recommend it. That's pretty much all the tricks I used here. As for lighting, this is just the default street lighting from the City Generator add-on. I added an extra area light on top of the car and made it follow the vehicle to really highlight it against the regular street lighting. I even went a bit overboard and added area lights to every glowing element on the car instead of just slapping an emission shader on the texture. And yeah, cars are moving in the background and all that, but honestly, none of that will even show up in the final render. So here's a tip. Ditch the unnecessary details if they're not going to be visible. Saves your GPU and your sanity. Let's jump into compositing real quick. Same setup as before, nothing new here. Let's break down this scene with Yeat. Yeah, that's Yeat. If it doesn't look like him, I know. I'll show you how I made the model later and why it turned out this way. I just slapped some accessories on him, a balaclava and a cap, so it kind of looks like Yeat. The real sauce of this scene, the clothes, or more specifically their animation. Check out how the shirt reacts to the character's movement. Wait bro, what happened to the shirt? Okay, so the shirt animation's gone. Good thing I already rendered the scene, because I spent way too much time trying to export and import the cloth sim from Marvelous Designer properly. I'm not even good at Marvelous, but I'll show you how I managed to get the cloth sim working in a bit. Let's just finish this scene first. I tried re-importing the shirt sim, didn't help. Whatever. Let's see how the scene looks in render mode. Yo, this looks insane, mostly thanks to the lighting. I really went all in here, just kept adding light sources until it looked right. No special method, you just gotta feel it. Some cool details here too. There's a cigarette, and the best part, animated smoke coming from it. I just took a volumetric smoke loop, parented it to the SIG, and then parented the SIG to one of Yeat's armature bones. The character animation took me a while. Even though it's not super realistic, I tried to make it feel clean and polished. Like here he grabs the steering wheel, and I made sure the hand actually wraps around it properly. Little things, but they matter. Nothing new with the render or scene settings, same as before, all in 4K. Actually, yeah, forgot to mention, I rendered all scenes in 4K just to reduce blur and keep that crispy quality. But in After Effects, during final editing, I scaled everything down by 50% anyway. Let's jump into Marvelous Designer real quick. I won't stay here long because, honestly, I don't even fully know how to use it. Here's our character in an A pose. I rolled the animation 100 frames back in Blender and exported him like this, just static in an A pose. Didn't tweak anything else, just grabbed a random cloak from my asset library, struggled to put it on Yeat, smashed that animate button, and after like 20 tries it finally settled okay. Exported the animation in Point Cache 2 format. As for materials, did all that in Blender. Next scene, the eye scene. Personally, I think this is the cleanest one, mostly because of the editing, not the 3D. But there's some 3D sauce too. The camera animation is stupid, simple, just to zoom in at a certain moment. In render mode, it looks like this. Dope. That part where the eye turns green is cool too. How I made it? I just slapped in an auto eye add-in and animated the shader. It's really flexible and easy to tweak. Besides the camera animation, the eye itself is animated, and not gonna lie, looks kinda realistic. To push the realism, I added a bit of shake on random constants, like rotation X. Behind the camera, the scene looks like this, super simple. I just grabbed some random model, doesn't even matter. Settings? Nothing new, just my usual optimized flow. And again, the King compositing doesn't change. I've got my go-to setup and I just stick to it. I lost count which scene this is now, but it's the final one. Trying to go through everything fast so y'all don't get bored just pointing out key stuff. Here's the scene. This cube here is a basic volume scatter to give the light a bit of haze. The grass is animated using the famous botanic add-on. I'm sure y'all know it already. Now the models, that's where it gets spicy. They're not just some internet models, it's simulated clothes on top of random mannequins I found online. I won't show Marvelous again, I'll just say I threw a cloth over them, tweaked wind settings, and animated the drape so it looked alive. Texturing was done in Blender again, went for glossy fabric look. The displacement map, that's what makes it hit. Also, the sky ended up looking beautiful, and instead of a flat image, I used an HDRI from BlenderKit. That way, it reacts to the animated camera movement properly, unlike static images. And yeah, I animated the camera focal length too for extra spice. For this and some other scenes, I got my inspo from Pinterest. If you're not using Pinterest yet, you're actually throwing. If you tune it to your vibe, it becomes an infinite scroll of reference images. Like this one right here, I used it for my final scene. Oh yeah, I also promised to show you the Yeat model. Here it is. Doesn't really look like him, but that's on purpose. I didn't add hair because I wanted him in a balaclava. Here's how I made him. Used Humigan, imported the only decent Yeat pic I could find, traced over his face with markers to get key lines, ended up with a clown. Then I tried matching face parameters in Humigan, didn't work. Why am I even telling you this? Let's just move on to the actual sauce. After Effects and post-process. Opened up the project and boom, a float of layers. Well, okay, not that many, but still. Let's hop into the first scene and I'll show you why we rendered in EXR format. See all these layers? I've hidden most of them since they're already rendered, but check this out. There's an extractor effect where I can select RGBA to merge everything into a single layer. But I did it differently. I split all the passes, diffuse, transmission, glossy, etc., and combine them manually. That way I can tweak every pass separately. Then I got this idea. Make everything in red, white tones to give off a trippy vibe from the POV of the main character. On some passes I used tritone and deep glow. I call that stylization. Or maybe I just made that up right now. After rendering, I wanted a transition like when the camera drops from sky to ground with distortions. Did that using a scale wipe animated stretch, and threw in some directional blur too. Also tweaked blur red and shift red so the red tones distort during the move. And now the sauce color grading. I'll show it fast in other scenes because every scene is different, but this one I'll break down fully. I've got 3 layers here. Bottom layer has this unique plugin called FilmConvert Nitrate. Don't see it used much, but it's cracked for grading. Makes everything feel cinematic instantly. Middle layer's a mess. First there's magic bullet looks, nothing wild. Boost brightness. Add vignette. Kill all colors except red. Desaturate. Then mess around with film print settings. After looks I got deep glow. Then another looks layer just for sharpening. Another looks, but it's only 38% opacity, so who cares. Then CC lens at the end for a lil screen distortion. Top layer is just sharpen and unsharpen mask to make the image pop. But wait, there's more. Another layer with a PNG sequence imported. Did separate color grading on that. I'm not going to show every setting or the video will end up 30 minutes long. The original idea was we're inside the main character's trip, and after a while it fades out, so he has to take another pill. Honestly, no deeper meaning here, I just wanted to animate that moment where the trip fades. So I just animated opacity on a non-trip version of the layer. That's it, nothing deep. No transition here, so we move straight to scene 2. Arguably the coolest one. So many details, I'll only show a few, because man, I'm tired af writing this script. Been at it for 2 hours already, and I still have 40-50 hours of editing ahead. Pain. Anyway, let's go. Start of the scene, barely any effects. Just a vignette on the clip layer to cover up the 4:3 resolution mess. Next, this shot looks clean AF. Color grading, just looks, and FilmConvert Nitrate. Now on this second shot, I added some cool details. Black bars at top and bottom animate in to crop the image. Easy stuff. Then the glitches that's a bit spicier. Use distort effects like threshold. But honestly, that could have just been a white flash, not that deep. There's just way too much going on in this scene. So I'll just skim like this color correction layer for the eye scene, but not the entire composition. Here's how it looks with and without. Use directional blur for the soft look, then tritone for green tint, then threshold and looks. But in this case, I'm using Twitch for movement, tritone for color, deep glow for that glow, and of course FilmConvert Nitrate for the final cinematic vibes. That wraps up the scene, but let's quickly break down the transition. There's an adjustment layer, but honestly it just adds a soft edge effect that's barely noticeable. What actually matters are these white solid layers, literally just 1 frame long white solids scattered every 2-3 frames to make this soft flickering glitch effect. Super simple, super effective. Okay, next scene. Again, I split it into EXR layers, adjusted the brightness of a few. Nothing crazy except one thing I really want to show you. I spent way too long figuring out this distortion effect around the edges. I tested a bunch of plugins and ended up with this clean solution using 2 adjustment layers. On the bottom layer, I only kept 1 plugin, Warp Chroma. That's all I needed, no filler. Turn it off, and the whole effect dies. Not what we want, right? To isolate the distortion to just the edges, I added a circular mask, feathered it, and animated the mask expansion to breathe in and out a bit. Subtle, but spicy. Now the top layer adds more detail. Bonus trick. Those cinematic black bars that slide in, that's not just aesthetic. The next scene is in a 12:5 resolution, so I animated the bars beforehand to make the resolution switch smoother. Next scene, no fancy transition here, just dissolve luma, a bit of opacity plus scale animation, and that's it. But here's what I love. I added motion blur only when the character moves. I sped up those moments and slapped on temporal blur. Since the character is the only thing moving, the blur hits just right, clean and purposeful. Also played around with color correction. I threw in the Colorize plugin just to see what would happen, and honestly, it kinda slaps. Now this next scene, it's trash. I messed it up in Blender and couldn't fix it in post, not even with effects or color grading. If it looks bad in Blender, no amount of After Effects will save it. Don't even try. Last scene, this one I actually like. I wanted a different color grade, but this version ended up being the best I could do. Look, this is the raw render, and this is with color correction. Big difference. Nothing wild here, just one interesting plugin. Color difference key. I picked out the blue tones, it cleaned things up a lot, then topped it all off with good FilmConvert Nitrate. I could stop here, I've already given away way too much sauce, but the real final boss is sound design. You seriously don't realize how much sound does until you mute the visuals and just listen. Here, let me show you. Yeah. That transition, it's unhinged. It's all about placing the right sounds in the right moments. And if you have no idea where to get sounds like this, don't worry, I gotcha. I recently dropped a sound pack, and literally every sound I use, it's from there. I use it in my own work. So if you want your edits to hit harder, go check it out. The pack has everything you could possibly need. Doesn't matter what you edit. Montage, covered. 3D art, covered. Even random editors who don't know what they're doing, still covered. It's loaded with my own sounds, plus tons of effects for literally any type of project. And right now it's got a fat discount since this is my first ever pack drop. But hey, I don't need to explain it. You've seen what it can do throughout the video. You already know it hits. This time I won't tease the next video like I always do. No cryptic outro, just a straight fact. The next one is going to be about